Kick him again, rich man still breathing. Frederick Cook's voice bounced off the alley walls, sharp and mean, slicing through the wet hush of night. His boot came down again with a sickening thud into the ribs of the man kneeling in front of him. Beside him, Alex Hobb and Pete Gregory stood like shadows with fists and pipes, taking turns. The air stank of wet concrete, blood, and something worse, rage that had finally found a body to punish. Justice Sinclair coughed hard, red splatter flecking his expensive tie. His hand scraped uselessly at the asphalt. His briefcase had burst open beside him, contracts and stock reports fluttering like dead leaves in the rain. His face, once polished and controlled, now sagged under the weight of bruises and disbelief. The man who always held the room, broken open under a street lamp. Frederick leaned in, breath steaming. Still think you're untouchable, huh? Then it came. Touch him one more time, and you'll regret it. The voice didn't yell. It didn't beg. It cut like ice, calm, flat, full of warning. Before we continue this thrilling story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. All three men turned, shoulders still heaving. At the far end of the alley stood a figure soaked in shadow and rain. Tall, wide-shouldered, black. The dim light caught on a worn knit cap pulled low, a tattered coat sagging off broad arms, boots fraying at the soles. His hands hung loose at his sides, but his feet were already planted. Wide, rooted. Frederick straightened up. Oh, great. Another hero. Alex squinted through the mist. You serious, man? You homeless or just lost? Looks like we get to make it 4 for 1, Pete growled, lifting his pipe with a metallic clang. The man didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on Frederick, then slid over each of them one by one, measuring, not flinching. Who the hell are you? Alex barked. Someone who's had enough of watching cowards beat what they envy. Frederick laughed. Oh, we got a philosopher. Then he stepped forward. It was the last step he'd take. Jasper Gardner moved so fast the rain hadn't even hit the ground before Frederick was flying backward into the alley wall with a crack. He slumped with a grunt, eyes wide and out cold. Alex blinked. Yo, what? Jasper was already in front of him. A sharp pivot, and his elbow drove straight into Alex's nose. Blood sprayed as Alex hit the pavement, howling. Pete shouted, charging forward with his pipe raised high. Jasper ducked, grabbed his coat collar, twisted his hip, and flipped the man over his back like a bag of trash. Pete slammed down hard. The pipe clattered away into the dark. Then stillness. 3 men who came to destroy lay scattered in a broken arc rain ticked against Jasper's shoulders. His chest rose and fell slow. Controlled. Justice Sinclair groaned on the pavement. One eye swollen shut, one arm trembling, he looked up at the man who now loomed above him. Jasper stared back. The millionaire, the power broker, the man who'd probably never once wondered where someone like Jasper slept at night, was on his knees, soaked in alley water and blood. Jasper reached out a hand. Justice hesitated, pride still buzzing even through pain. But his fingers twitched, then rose. He took the hand. A firm grip pulled him to his feet. They stood there, 2 men, one dressed like a ghost of power, the other like the city itself. Justice tried to speak. His lips parted. Nothing came. Flashing lights flickered faintly in the distance. Sirens. Jasper glanced toward the sound, then back at the man he'd just saved. You should sit down, he said. Help's coming. Justice nodded faintly and sank to the ground again. Jasper stepped away into the dark, his silhouette disappearing like mist. Justice watched him go, confusion and something else stirring behind his bruised eyes. Then the sirens grew louder, and everything went black. 45 minutes earlier, Justice Sinclair had walked out of a glass tower downtown with the arrogance of a man who believed the city owed him silence and safe passage. He never saw it coming. 45 minutes earlier, Justice Sinclair stepped out of the gleaming tower on West 8th with the kind of calm that comes from believing nothing can touch you. The city lights reflected off his tailored navy suit, casting a faint shimmer on the lapels. His shoes, polished to a mirror, clicked confidently against the marble steps as he descended into the night. The meeting had gone exactly how he'd planned. The board voted 9-1 in favor of the merger. He called it necessary optimization. The press release would say it was about positioning for growth. But behind closed doors, it meant 300 jobs gone by the end of the quarter. Collateral. Justice didn't lose sleep over numbers. Numbers didn't bleed, after all. His driver waited at the curb, a sleek black sedan idling with soft jazz leaking from the radio. Justice waved him off. "I'll walk. Air's too thick up here." He wanted to feel the city tonight. Smell the wet pavement. Hear the hum of power lines and the hiss of buses. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe just ego. He turned his collar up against the mist and started walking east, cutting through a section of downtown that hadn't seen a renovation budget in a decade. His path led him toward the warehouse strip, an industrial corridor riddled with chain-link fences and graffiti murals that blurred in the rain. The kind of place rich men only passed in cars. He moved briskly, unfazed. His Rolex flashed beneath his cuff. 9:42 p.m. A $40,000 timepiece, ticking through a neighborhood that couldn't afford dinner. He barely noticed the alley until he was in it. Just a narrow cut between two old brick buildings, filled with puddles and the scent of rot. Shorter than walking around the block, he figured. Quicker, cleaner. He was halfway through when he heard the footsteps. At first, he dismissed them. City noise. Echoes. But then there were more. 3 sets. Fussed. Focused. He turned just as the voices came. "Evening, Mr. Sinclair." Frederick Cook stepped into the yellow glow of a flickering light. His jaw was square, his eyes sunken. Behind him stood Alex Hobb and Pete Gregory, shoulders hunched, knuckles raw. All 3 wore denim and leather, soaked in rain, steam rising faintly from their breath. Justice's feet slowed. "Do I know you?" "You should," Frederick said, taking a step forward. "But you don't. That's the point." Alex smiled wide. "You remember the Brentford project? The acquisition last March?" Pete added, "Yeah, we built that thing. Until your streamlining left us feeding rats in studio apartments." Justice squinted, recognition flickering too late. Construction contractors. He'd seen their names once, in a quarterly brief. Numbers in a margin. "I didn't." Frederick cut him off. "We don't want your excuses, boss." The pipe came from nowhere. Cold steel slammed into his side. His breath left in a grunt as pain exploded through his ribs. Justice hit the ground hard. The alley was wet, slick. His briefcase spilled open beside him. Papers soaked instantly, pages curling in a mud. A kick caught his shoulder before he could crawl away. Another to the back. He tried to shout, but Pete's boot found his stomach and folded him in half. The sounds were quick and brutal. Flesh, bone, pavement, metal. "Corporate trash," Alex muttered, standing over him. "This one's for my wife," Frederick said. "She had to sell her car to make rent." Another blow. "And this one," Pete growled, "is for me." Justice gasped. Lips split, blood dripping into his mouth. His mind raced, scrambled. He tried to think, negotiate, bribe. But the pain scrambled everything. There were no deals here. No spreadsheets. No boardroom. Just wet brick, city stink, and the sound of 3 men punishing a man who forgot what it felt like to bleed. Then he saw it, the edge of his own hand reaching for his briefcase. Useless. Frederick raised the pipe again. Justice braced for darkness. And then, touch him one more time, and you'll regret it. Everything froze. And everything changed. Jasper Gardner stood still beneath a flickering street lamp, half-shadowed, half-soaked in the haze of drizzle. The bulb above him buzzed with dying energy, casting fractured light down onto the cracked sidewalk. It was the kind of night where the world pretended not to see itself. But Jasper saw everything. Across the street, down the alley, three men rained violence on someone too broken to resist. Their silhouettes twisted in sharp, jerky movements, like wolves circling something already torn open. Each grunt and wet thud echoed loud enough to carry, but not loud enough to matter. Not in this part of the city. Jasper didn't blink. He didn't gasp. He just watched. The man on the ground, white hair streaked with blood, suit shredded, fingers twitching like he was trying to grasp something long gone, was clearly rich, important. But here, none of that saved him. Jasper knew that look. Not the face. The look. A man who thought he understood the rules of the world, learning too late that some alleys don't care about your name. He inhaled once, deep and slow, felt the air settle inside his lungs, centered his weight in the arches of his bare-soled boots. He knew what came next, because Jasper had lived both sides. He used to teach form and discipline in a clean dojo tucked behind a bookstore in East Ridge. Parents paid in full, students bowed at the door, and respect lived in the floorboards. His wife, Lila, had run the books, smiled at every kid, brought hot tea when winter made the mats cold. For years, it felt like peace. But peace is a cost in this world. First came Lila's diagnosis, then the treatment bills, then the insurance denials. A merger swallowed their coverage whole. Some nameless executive called it reallocation of resources. 1 month later, the studio lease was revoked. Jasper's dojo became a vape shop. His home, a notice. His future, a question. Still, every morning Jasper trained. In vacant lots, under bridges, behind dumpsters. His body never forgot what the world tried to take. And when trouble came near, when someone needed defending and no one else stepped in, he moved. Not for glory, not for revenge, because silence was surrender. And tonight, silence surrounded him. Frederick Cook raised the pipe again. That's when Jasper stepped forward. The puddle beneath his foot rippled as he crossed into the alley mouth. The men didn't hear him at first. The rain masked his approach. But when he spoke, his voice cut clean through the storm. Touch him one more time, and you'll regret it. The words dropped like stone into still water. 3 heads turned. The attacker holding the pipe froze mid-swing. The other 2 stepped back instinctively, scanning the darkness. All they saw was a man in a worn coat, shoulders squared, stance rooted like an old oak still standing after every storm. Frederick squinted. Yo, where'd you come from? Jasper didn't answer. Pete stepped closer. You trying to be a hero, old man? Still nothing. What's this, homeless justice? Alex sneered. Jasper's breath slowed again. He exhaled through his nose. His right foot shifted back by a hair. His hands opened and lowered. Balanced. Centered. He wasn't here to talk. He was here because if he wasn't, no one else would be. He watched Frederick's weight lean forward. Watched the grip on the pipe tighten. He moved before they even finished laughing. Because cruelty always laughs before it breaks. And Jasper knew how to break it. By the time the first blow landed, the fight was already over. Frederick charged like a freight train, loud, fast, no control. Jasper didn't move until the last second. Then he shifted, a pivot of the hips, a dip of the shoulder. He caught Frederick's arm mid-swing, twisted it with effortless grace, and redirected the man's own weight with a flick of his center. Frederick's momentum betrayed him. His boots slid on the slick pavement. He slammed shoulder first into the brick wall with a crack, groaning as he crumpled to the ground. Yo, what the Alex barked? He swung the pipe wide, rage and panic clashing in his chest. Jasper stepped into the strike, raised his forearm, and absorbed the blow with a practiced deflection. The metal rang dully against bone. Without hesitating, Jasper's front foot shot forward like a piston. His heel buried deep into Alex's sternum. The wind rushed out of him in a sick, hollow wheeze. Alex dropped. The pipe clanged beside him. Pete was the last, the biggest. He didn't charge. He lunged, thick arms wrapping around Jasper's chest from behind, trying to lift, crush, squeeze the air out of him. But Jasper had felt worse. He trained in holds that mimicked suffocation. He didn't panic. Instead, he bent his knees, lowering his weight into the earth. His hips dropped. His body coiled. And then he uncoiled. He hooked his foot around Pete's ankle, shifted his stance, and used the man's bulk against him. A smooth throw, clean and brutal. Pete's feet left the ground. His back met the concrete with a thunderous slam. Silence. Just rain again. And breathing. 3 men, groaning and scattered in a circle around the one man they try to break. Jasper straightened slowly. His chest rose and fell with measured breath. His eyes scanned the ground. Justice Sinclair lay curled beside his ruined briefcase. Blood streaked down his face. One hand pressed against his ribs. His breath came in short, pained bursts. His tie was soaked, his collar ripped. His suit looked more like a rag now than a power symbol. He stared up at Jasper, blinking through blood and rain. His eyes searched the man's face. Not for answers, not yet. Just for reason. Jasper stepped toward him. Kneeling, he offered his hand. Justice stared at it like it was a loaded question. "Get up," Jasper said, voice low, steady. Justice hesitated. The air around them was still heavy with the scent of violence. Somewhere in the back of his head, pride screamed at him not to accept help. Not from this man. Not from someone like this. But his body didn't listen to pride. It listened to pain. And pain knew surrender. He took the hand. Jasper lifted him gently, one hand under his elbow. Justice stumbled to his feet like a man learning to walk again. He clutched his ribs and leaned against the wall. Jasper looked down at the attackers, still writhing. "You good?" he asked quietly. Justice managed a nod, followed by a grimace. I think so." Jasper gave a single, curt nod and stepped back. And that's when the sirens cut through the night. Close. Getting closer. Red and blue lights flared at the far end of the alley. Tires screeched. Doors flung open. Police. Hands where we can see him. Justice raised his arm weakly. Wait. He's not. Too late. Flashlights caught the scene. 3 men down, 1 black man standing, fists loose, chest heaving. Jasper didn't resist. He just stood still, arms raised slowly into the air as the cops swarmed him, guns drawn, shouts overlapping. On the ground. Now, Jasper dropped to his knees without a word. One officer shoved him forward, another twisted his arms behind his back and cuffed him hard. Justice tried to step forward. "No, stop. He saved me," he croaked. A young officer blocked him. "Sir, stay back. We've got it under control." "No, you don't," Justice barked. "He's not one of them." A coughing fit stopped his words cold. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. But no one was listening. Jasper was already in the back of the squad car, head turned toward the window, rain streaking down the glass beside his face. Justice watched as the car pulled away. His mouth opened. Nothing came. The man who had saved his life was gone. And for the first time in a very long time, Justice Sinclair felt powerless. Flashing lights bled through the rain, strobes of red and blue splashing across brick and blood. The alley transformed from a crime scene to a battlefield under floodlights, raw, exposed, electric. Justice Sinclair slumped against the wall, struggling to stay upright. His body ached from head to toe. Each breath burned. His vision blurred in and out, rain mixing with blood along his jawline. He raised a trembling hand. Across from him, Jasper Gardner stood still, chest rising slow and steady. His fists were lowered. His stance was no longer a fighter's. It was just a man in the open, waiting to be seen for who he was. He wasn't. "Hands up. Now," barked the first officer through a megaphone. Jasper didn't flinch. He lifted his arms calmly, fingers splayed, eyes level. "I'm not resisting," he said. Boots thundered down the alley. 5 cops in ballistic vests and drawn weapons swarmed the scene. One shouted into a radio. Another swept past Justice without a glance, headed straight for Jasper. Justice tried to speak. "Wait," he rasped. the word catching in his throat like gravel. No one heard him, but they chose not to. Two officers grabbed Jasper roughly, yanking his arms down, slamming him face first to the wet asphalt. A knee dug into his back as cuffs clicked around his wrists. "Suspect detained," one officer called out. "Male, black, mid-40s. Justice coughed violently, spitting blood into his lapel. He tried again. Louder. "Stop. That's the wrong." His voice cracked. "He saved me." One officer turned, finally noticing the bleeding man against the wall. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, moving toward him. He's not one of them," Justice gasped, pointing toward Jasper. "He stopped them." The officer glanced back toward the man now on the ground in cuffs, soaking wet, not moving. "All we saw was a fight, Mr. Sinclair," she said flatly. "We'll sort it out at the station." Justice's eyes widened, fury and confusion rising beneath the haze of pain. "You didn't see anything, but it didn't matter." Jasper was already being lifted to his feet, pushed toward a squad car. He didn't look back. His face stayed calm, unreadable. Not angry, not afraid, just quiet. The door slammed shut behind him. Justice leaned back against the wall as his knees gave out. The last thing he saw before slipping into unconsciousness was the cruiser's taillights vanishing around the corner. The hospital smelled like bleach and quiet judgment. Justice lay in a private room, for drip in his arm, bruises blossoming across his ribs and jaw. A nurse checked his vitals. A detective waited with a pad and a practiced, neutral stare. "Mr. Sinclair, can you walk me through what happened in that alley?" Justice's voice was dry. "3 men jumped me. I don't know their names, but they said something about a construction contract. Layoffs. It was personal." The detective nodded. "And the man who fought them off? His name's Jasper," Justice said. "He's not one of them. He showed up and saved my life." The detective scribbled. He was standing over the scene when officers arrived. "Because he ended it," Justice snapped, sharper than he meant. "He was protecting me. He didn't know me. He just stepped in." The detective paused, pen hovering. "Mr. Sinclair, that's your account. But from the officer's view, all they saw was a man standing over 3 unconscious suspects. You bleeding on the ground. No one else visible." Justice closed his eyes. "You think he was the attacker?" "I think we don't know." "Not yet," the detective said. "He'll be processed, interviewed. If your statement holds, we'll move forward appropriately." Justice turned his head away. He's not a suspect, but the detective was already thanking him and heading for the door. That night, Justice couldn't sleep. Not from pain. Not really. His ribs hurt, yes. His cheekbone was swollen. But the ache wasn't physical. His mind kept circling back to the alley. The boots, the fists, the helpless crawl. And then, that voice. That presence. Jasper hadn't moved like someone trying to impress. He moved like someone trying to prevent damage. Like someone who didn't enjoy violence, but understood it. Controlled it. Used it only when needed. He hadn't fought like a thug. He'd fought like a protector. Justice remembered the hand. The steady grip. The words, "Get up. No judgment. No anger. Just stillness. Purpose." He turned on the lamp and sat up slowly, grimacing. Reached for his phone. He scrolled through contacts, opened his assistant's profile, and hit dial. It rang once before she answered. "Mr. Sinclair? Are you all right? I need you to find someone," he said. "Now." "Of course." "Who?" "His name is Jasper Gardner," Justice said. "They took him from the alley. He was arrested by mistake." A pause. "What should I tell them he is to you?" Justice stared at the wall. "Tell them he's the only reason I'm still alive." The shelter was quiet when Justice arrived. Not the kind of quiet you find in a library or a chapel, but the kind born of exhaustion, of lives held together by thin blankets and thinner hope. The smell of disinfectant mingled with old coffee and damp wool. Outside, the rain had started again, light this time, almost respectful. Justice hesitated at the door. He didn't belong here. Not in this world of cracked tiles and folding chairs. Not in a place where names were forgotten more often than remembered. but he stepped in anyway. A volunteer pointed him toward the back, past rows of cots and lined faces. No one looked twice at the man in the pressed overcoat and leather shoes. Some had seen men like him before, usually on fundraisers, not foot. There, against the far wall, beneath a barred window, letting in gray light, sat Jasper Gardner. He was reading. A tattered Bible rested open on his knee. His coat was different, less torn but still plain. His posture hadn't changed. Back straight, legs grounded, shoulders loose. Like he was always ready. For anything. Justice cleared his throat. Jasper looked up. Calm. No surprise. Just recognition. I didn't expect you to come, he said, voice even. Justice stepped closer. I had to. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, thick, crisp. He held it out. $100,000, Justice said. It's yours. No strings. Just thanks. Jasper looked at the envelope, then at Justice, then back at the Bible. I don't want your money. Justice blinked. You earned it. I didn't do it for payment. Justice held the envelope a little firmer. Then take it for your future. Jasper's eyes lifted. Sharper now. My future was dismantled by your past. The envelope lowered slightly. Justice exhaled. Then what do you want? Jasper closed the Bible gently. For you to see what your money's done. He gestured to the cot beside him. I had a dojo once. Small. Nothing fancy. We trained kids who needed somewhere to go after school. Parents who wanted their daughters to walk home safe. Veterans trying to remember discipline over anger. Justice sat slowly. What happened? Jasper's tone didn't rise. He didn't need it to. The landlord sold the building. Said he got an offer he couldn't refuse. Corporate acquisition. Said the new firm needed the space for a parking deck. Justice felt something shift in his stomach. I thought maybe I could rebuild somewhere else, Jasper went on. But then my wife got sick. The bills stacked up. I filed the claim through her job's insurance. She worked at a credit union under a Sinclair subsidiary. The claim was denied. Some loophole about pre-existing conditions. Justice's hands tightened around the envelope. She passed, Jasper said simply, and the world got quiet, except for the debt collectors. Silence settled between them. Justice's throat tightened. I didn't know. You never do, Jasper replied. That's the problem. I can't undo what's been done. No, Jasper said, but you can start fixing what's still broken. Justice didn't speak right away. He looked around the room, at the cots, the chipped paint, the people lost in the shuffle of things he helped set in motion. He looked back at the envelope, and then, wordlessly, he placed it on the cot. Not as a transaction, not as a payoff, as a symbol. Jasper didn't pick it up, but he nodded once. For the first time, Justice Sinclair didn't feel like a man giving something. He felt like a man being given a second chance. A week later, the city woke up to a different kind of story. It started with a single clip. Grainy security camera footage leaked from a backlit warehouse camera. At first, it was hard to make out. A flicker of movement rained shadows. But then the shapes came into focus. 3 men circling another. A body on the ground. And then the storm. Jasper. He moved like water breaking through dam walls. Controlled, powerful, precise. In seconds, he turned the ambush upside down. Fists, feet, elbows, each strike landed like punctuation. The man on the ground, identified quickly as Justice Sinclair, lay bloody and broken. The footage showed it all. The assault, the defense, the stillness afterward. And then, the flashing lights. The arrival of police. The moment Jasper raised his hands. The moment they slammed him to the pavement. The headline dropped the next morning and caught fire by noon. Homeless man saves millionaire, then gets arrested. Within hours, it was everywhere. News segments, podcasts, social media, hashtags, talk shows. People reposted the clip with captions like, "He deserves a medal, not handcuffs, and this is what injustice looks like." Jasper's name, once unknown, became a symbol. And justice? His phone rang off the hook. Reporters camped outside his gated estate. Protesters gathered with signs and questions. The board of Sinclair Holdings demanded a closed-door meeting. "This story is radioactive," his head of PR said, pacing his office. "You need to say nothing. Issue a neutral statement. Maybe donate quietly. Let it blow over." Justice sat behind his desk, watching the footage on loop. Jasper stepping forward, hands raised, expression unreadable. "I owe him," Justice said quietly. "You owe your shareholders," snapped one board member. "That man is a political landmine. He saved my life. He's still a liability." Justice stood up. The room went still. "Then maybe this company needs to ask why saving a life makes someone a liability." They stared at him like he'd gone mad. But he wasn't mad. He was awake. 2 days later, the press conference began. Reporters packed the hall, cameras flashing, live feeds running. Justice stood at the podium. No teleprompter, no scripted remarks. Just truth. "A week ago, I was beaten in an alley," he said. "A man I've never met stepped in and saved me. That man didn't ask who I was. He didn't care about my money or my name. He just saw someone in danger and chose to act." A pause. That man was homeless, unarmed, and arrested for the crime of doing the right thing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Justice continued. "I built an empire by making decisions in rooms like this. Rooms that were quiet, comfortable, detached. I stopped thinking about what those decisions did to real people. Jasper Gardner was one of them." He swallowed. "Now he's the reason I'm standing here at all." Another pause. Then, "If that doesn't humble you, nothing will." He reached into the folder on the podium and held up a single page. "I'm launching a foundation today. It's called the Gardner Foundation. Its mission is simple: rebuild what's been broken. Support those we cast aside. Give second chances to the ones who never had a first." A reporter stood. "Will Jasper be involved?" Justice nodded. "He'll help lead it, if he's willing." The flashbulbs exploded. But Justice didn't flinch. He was no longer protecting a brand. He was trying to protect something more fragile. His soul. The door to the shelter creaked open again. This time, Jasper wasn't surprised to see Justice Sinclair step through. The man looked different now, less polished, more present. No entourage, no camera cruz. Just a man in a plain coat, carrying a folder under his arm and something heavier in his eyes. Jasper looked up from a battered notebook filled with scribbles and drills. Back again, Justice offered a small smile. "Didn't think I'd get a warm welcome." "I didn't say it was warm, just not surprised." Justice chuckled and sat on the edge of the nearest cot. "I came with something more than a check this time." Jasper closed the notebook, waiting. "I want to build something real," Justice said. "A place where people can train, learn, heal. I want to create a program, self-defense, yes, but also discipline, purpose, not just shelters, foundations." Jasper leaned back, arms crossed. "And you want me to run it?" Justice nodded. "With me, not for me." Jasper studied him in silence. "You ever been punched in the face during training?" "Only in boardrooms." "That's not the same." "No," Justice said, "but I'm learning." Jasper didn't smile. "Not yet. People don't change that fast." "Maybe not," Justice agreed. "But someone's got to try." The quiet between them stretched long and steady. Then Jasper nodded. Within a month, the Gardner Foundation found its first space, a shuttered rec center off Grant Avenue. The paint was peeling, the gym mats were torn, but the floor was solid and the bones were strong. Jasper set up the mats himself, moved the old bags, measured the space with a quiet pride. Justice watched him work, then joined in, awkward at first but sincere. They brought in veterans first, men and women who had returned from war and found the streets waiting. Then came the teens, young and angry and aimless. Then came women looking for strength, men trying to unlearn pain. Jasper taught them the breath, the stance, how to fall without fear and rise without apology. Justice learned to listen, really listen. He stopped talking and started asking questions. He learned to wrap wrists, tape mats, mop sweat off floors. He'd never felt more human. Then came the call. The three attackers, Frederick, Alex, and Pete, had been caught. Not through a manhunt, through ego. They posted about the alley, bragged, shared blurry selfies of bruised knuckles and warped stories. The DA wanted to press full charges. Justice sat with Jasper late one evening, the folder open again between them. "You could bury them," he said. "They deserve it." Jasper didn't answer right away. He stared out the window, where the rain was coming again. "They thought I was no one," he said finally. "Didn't matter what I'd lived, what I'd lost. They saw what I looked like and decided who I was." Justice nodded slowly. "So what do you want to do?" Jasper turned to him. Calm, steady. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Justice raised an eyebrow. "Even them?" Jasper's answer came without pause. "Especially them." The next morning, the DA got a letter. The charges would be dropped with one condition: community service at the Gardner Foundation. No violence. Just hours. Just work. It was more than punishment. It was a beginning. The warehouse stood taller now. Once forgotten, rusted, and tagged with layers of spray paint, it had been stripped, cleaned, reborn. Fresh brick. New windows. A long black awning stretched across the front, and above it, a bold white banner read, "The Gardner Center for Human Dignity." The street outside buzzed with reporters, city officials, neighborhood families, and camera crews broadcasting live. Folding chairs lined the sidewalk. Kids clutched flyers. Volunteers wore matching shirts. Behind the podium, framed by soft golden lights, two men waited. Justice Sinclair stepped forward first. Gone was the perfect suit and icy smile. He wore a gray blazer, sleeves rolled, no tie. He looked like a man who'd stopped performing and started showing up. He leaned into the mic, voice steady. "Some people build empires," he began, scanning the faces. "I did, but empires crumble. They rot from the inside when they forget who they were built on, and who they left behind." He paused. "Others rebuild humanity. Not with money, with hands, with purpose, with courage." His voice softened. "Tonight, I stand beside the man who reminded me which one matters." A ripple of applause rolled through the crowd. Then it grew louder as Jasper Gardner stepped forward. He wore no suit, just a clean white shirt tucked into dark jeans, a canvas belt looped neatly. No utility, no badge of status, just the quiet authority of a man who had nothing to prove and everything to give. He didn't use the mic. He just spoke. "I'm not special," he said. His voice carried anyway. "I didn't step into that alley because I'm brave or strong. I stepped in because no one else did. I just refused to look away." He looked at the crowd. Anyone could do the same. More applause, not thunderous, but real. Earnest. Justice turned toward him. Jasper nodded once. In the back row, Frederick, Alex, and Pete stood in silence. They wore volunteer vests now, not cuffs. They'd helped hang banners, stock food pantries, mop floors, scrub graffiti from the back walls. They said little, but they worked. No one asked them to apologize. They just showed up. As the cameras panned, Jasper's eyes drifted across the street, past the crowd, past the lights, to the alley in the distance. Dark again, quiet, familiar. Rain had begun to fall, thin and silver. It caught the street lamp there, dancing in slow arcs through the air. He watched it for a long moment, then said quietly, "Funny thing about the dark." Justice heard him and turned. "It only wins if no one steps in." They stood side by side, the crowd behind them, the alley ahead, the future wide open. And for the first time in a long time, the city felt like it might finally be healing.